Sometimes simple is good, though.
I actually do like that one.
Today's Becca's favorite day of the year.
What is it?
It is Good Friday.
Oh my God,
Good Friday.
So great. It's every day of the year. It's Good Friday.
I hate you all.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Track Packers podcast for episode 8 of season 2. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we have spring on the way and racing soon to follow. We have the full cast here once again with myself, Mason, along with Becca, John, and Jessup. In 2023, we are presented by Hitch Harness. We want to thank Tyler Hall, along with Clear Arc Industries, for the sponsorship of this podcast. He developed the Hitch Harness project, and it serves multiple purposes. First aspect is safety. It's safe receiver hitch storage in the back of your truck bed. So that way your hitch is not rolling around the back of the truck during travel. Nothing catastrophic happens if you encounter a bumpy road. So safety is the first aspect. Second aspect is efficiency. With it located back in the truck bed, if you have a quick project where you need to switch something out quickly, it offers easy access for you to get to your receiver hitch. And also, if you go to check out their website at hitchharness.com, for you racers out there, you can get some chassis dollies. And so if you want to have some easier access to work on your car in the shop, that's also another option. There's plenty of sizes to choose from, multiple colors. So if you have multiple hitches that you want to store in the back of your truck, head over to hitchharness.com and see what fits well for you. And so we want to thank Tyler Hall for the support of the podcast in 2023. The other order of business that we kind of need to address here is the folks on the cast here don't necessarily know what's going on right here, but you probably notice we have a different lineup. And the reason that is because if you watched our previous episode, we had a smorgasbord of cautions, basically led by yours truly on that. And so I have been relegated to the back row along with Saya Jessup. So now Becca and John are on the front row. So a little bit different layout for the podcast tonight. So I'm going to send a picture to the group so they know that I'm not kidding when I say the lineup is slightly different. So with that, Becca, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Am I really on the poll? Holy
You are.
moly. Wow.
You never had one caution last podcast. And I mean, that's got to be a first.
That it probably is a first, because I'm known to say really dumb things on the podcast. So yeah.
This comes naturally.
Good deal. Yeah, so take hold of that pole position. Don't give it up. We want you to be the winner of this race. All right. John, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Mason. Obviously, my cheerful mood over here as well. To see, I'm a little less miserable than normal here tonight. So doing quite well here in North Dakota. I'm excited because next week the weather looks like it's going to start warming up a little bit, which means guess what? Snow's going to melt. We're getting closer to race season, so that's good too. It looks like, knock on wood, we've maybe overcome a little bit of that hump of colder weather with snowstorms. And here in Bismarck, I know we kind of got missed by the last blizzard that just happened here on Tuesday, Wednesday. I know, Mason, you guys got hit pretty hard. I think almost, a foot of snow or more over there on what you guys had. So tough break for you guys for sure. But one positive thing, I think, when we get racing and when we get started, there's probably going to be a little less watering than probably is going to have to be normal in the springtime for some of these racetracks. I think they're going to be a little bit of tack in the tracks here as we get ready to start the racing season.
Yeah, and the snow is at least melting here, which is really nice, but part of it's melting in my apartment right now, so that's not so super ideal. So hopefully we get that out of the way in the next few days. And Jessup, how are you doing
I'm doing pretty good, Mason. All in all, it's a good night. And, I think in this field of competitors, the back row will be charging to the front in no time.
That would be a good result for the both of us. I don't know about Becca and John on the front row, but we will see as we drop the green flag for episode 8 of season 2. We'll get right into who or what are we repping, and we'll start with Miss Becca on the poll. Who or what are you repping for this episode?
Well, we are now into April, and a very special racing day is coming up. And we did a whole episode on it last year, but on Monday, that'll be April 10th or 410. So I am wearing a Donny Shots t-shirt that I picked up down at Volusia. I really just like the colors and the paint scheme of it all. But yeah, it's a nice little Donny Shots t-shirt for the upcoming 410.
I do like that shirt. That is actually really, really, really nice, especially the back of the shirt too.
I forgot you got that shirt.
Did Donny Shots start in a 410 sprint car?
I don't think he did.
What do you think he started in? A 305? A 360?
Think a 360.
Winner.
Yay!
Becca,
Again, racing
he's
history
also-
before my time. So
he's also a WISSOTA champion too in
that I knew.
WISSOTA sprint cars, which were 360 sprint cars back in the day.
That I knew.
So good job. Becca.
I wrote an article about Donny Shots back when the World of Outlaws came to Dakota Speedway in 2008. And I knew he raced WISSOTA. I assumed he raced the WISSOTA Street Stocks because that's the only WISSOTA class we raced at Dakota Speedway back then, or still to this day. And everyone let me know that no, he did not race WISSOTA Street Stocks. Anyway, that was my very first year in. Yeah, again, I was 18 years old, just getting into journalism because I wanted to get into NASCAR. So this was my building steps to get there, and lots of reporting rookie mistakes in journalism and all sorts of things.
John,
just
You had to learn.
Becca would have fit in with journalism today. A young Becca would have.
Oh, for sure.
assuming things and
just
getting everything
sure.
wrong.
Things,
Yeah.
No fact
For
checking,
sure.
no research prior to it. Just making
No,
bold
for-
accusations. Donny
Oh.
Shots is here. He raced the street stock. Everybody, he's started at the bottom. Now he's here.
Becca would have been actually better than some of those, actually better than a majority of those reporters that are brand new today or even seasoned today.
Good times.
My writing and research has gotten much better since my very first year in 2008. I promise you. But I did the thing that you should never do, and I assumed things, and everyone let me know I was very wrong in all those details.
Good
So
idea, Becca.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I did know.
I'm sure he would have been really good in a street stock though.
Oh, I would say so too. I mean, just from a stepping stone, I think it was probably it's a good starter class for sure for a lot of class, especially up in that neck of the woods, because there really isn't another class to start from. It's pretty much kind of your street stocks back then were your starter class.
Yep, absolutely. Well, cool, awesome shirt, Becca. Mr. John Breckle, who or what are you repping for this episode?
So Becca, I'm glad you're still on your poll, so that is good as well. And for me myself, since I'm starting on the outside of the poll, I am actually repping retro tonight. So I went a little retro on my shirt, and I went back to the 33rd annual Jamestown Stock Car Stampede, the 2004 shirt from the Stock Car Stampede, which has the winners of the 2003 Stock Car Stampede on the back of it. And a little quiz time here. There was a driver that won 2 classes back in 2003 for the Stampede. And does anybody know who that driver was and what classes he was running?
Oh, we said this during the Stampede last year. There's 3 drivers who've done it. Luke Krogh was the third. I want to say Hank Berry was the first, but I have Mason.
I was going to guess Hank Berry.
Hank Berry was the first.
Mason would be right because Hank ended up doing it. And Mason, in what classes was he running back then?
I assume it would be back then. It would probably have been with Soda Mods and with Soda Late Models.
You're correct.
I was totally going to cheat because I have this information digitized, but I did not pull it up in time. But the
But-
the second one was John. Oh God, I don't want to say it wrong. I like my
Man.
pole position.
I already have the second one already
Isn't
too.
it
I know you
Travis
do.
Sauer?
Mason's right on that too. And what
Mhm.
year, Mason, was that?
How would
Dang
you say
it.
that wrong?
Is it 2012?
I was gonna say
Becca's
12.
right.
Oh,
Yep, Becca is right. So Travis Sauer won that year in the Wasota Midwest Modifieds and in the Wasota Mods. And 2012 was actually the year that they had the most cars at the Stock Car Stampede. With I think the Midwest Mod class that year had, I think 74 Midwest Mods that year. They had a ton of Midwest Mods there. And Travis ended up taking second in his heat race to Lance Schill. And that year they took the top 2 out of the heat races. And I think they had 9 heat races that year, and they took them straight up. And Travis was in heat race 8. So he started the feature in 17th and ended up winning that feature that year from coming through the field. So yeah, so he had a really good year that year, and a really tight battle with Casey Arneson was still in the Midwest Mod back then, had a really good battle with him. And then Tyler Peterson was right there too, with a battling that was going on. So yeah, so really good racing that year. And then to go to the mods, it was Travis and Blake Jetving who put on a show for sure in that feature event. Those guys were crisscrossing it up, of one on the top, one on the bottom, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Some really good racing those years, and actually I have those years actually on cassette tape at home. So that was that year there was a lot of really good jostling back and forth. And one of our local guys here in the Bismarck Mandan area that runs with us a lot back in 2012 was Zach Frederick, who ended up winning the street stocks back then. In a really good battle with Duffy Fromke. So see, I'm just like a history book over here when it comes to some of the North Dakota, racing stuff that comes across from several events. But yes, I went retro on this shirt to go back to 2003 winners from the 2004 Stock Car Stampede shirt from the 33rd annual, which it's hard to believe, but that was almost 20 years ago.
That is crazy. That is kind of
Wow.
crazy. You need to work on getting those cassette tapes converted to like a video format that we could watch on the computer or something.
Oh, I agree.
Why don't we
So-
just put them on YouTube?
Yep. Which
There's websites that'll do that for you, John.
Mason,
Yeah.
they're DVDs, so you could already watch them on a computer.
Are they already converted to DVDs? Do you have them?
Yes, they're already DVDs.
Okay, we'll have to
Again,
watch
there
it
are
some.
companies on the internet that'll do that for you.
That is true. Cool.
I would appreciate that because I wasn't around for that.
Exactly. Have to have a watch party, especially with no racing coming up in the near future. But Jessup, what are you repping for this episode?
I am representing the 2014 Wasota 100. And the reason why I picked the shirt is because it kind of matches the paint scheme theme that I initially did for our topic tonight. So that's kind of the reason behind it. And it was also on top of all my other t-shirts.
There you go. Just scraping off the top of the pile. Cool.
Hey, next one up. Let's go.
There you go. Well, and for my gear today, I took a page out of Senior Mr. Controversial, Jessup Pelkey. We'll start with the hat. I'm wearing a Speedway Morris IMCA Weekly Racing Feature Winner hat. The shirt, I'm wearing the 2021, the 35th Annual Wasota 100. Nice, bright neon yellow shirts. It stands out. I always like to get shirts that really stand out. And for the can koozie, because I had kind of a wacky week, and so did this entity, I have a NASCAR Cup Series koozie. So
Oh
I'm
my.
touching all sectionings. There's no bias here today for Mr. Mason. What's the question for?
Mason, you are not touching all sanctioning bodies. That is a very wrong statement. So you have IMCA, you have Wasota, you have NASCAR, but you're missing like another good majority of sanctioning bodies. Even just within North Dakota, you're missing them.
Oh, well.
So
Oy, oy, oy.
yeah, so
Well,
that
I mean-
deserves a caution. Caution
Sure.
on Mason.
Mason,
Good
that's the
job.
equivalent of like Eric Almirola just like brushing the wall, and NASCAR's like, oh no, we have to throw a caution at the end of the race
This
so
is
that we
like
can
a,
make the ending super exciting.
Mason, I would agree with Becca's analogy there, but it's still a caution, needless to say.
this is
Well,
like
I'll try
spitting
to get,
out
like-
while you're in last place. It doesn't hurt him besides taking that initial caution.
It's true.
Right. I guess I'll work on getting like an NX bracelet, a USRA bracelet. What else we got? Like a NOSA like necktie. I don't know.
NLRA, the Western, wingless renegades.
Yeah.
So, yep.
I'll get to work on that for the next time I go unbiased for my repertoire. So before we get into our main topic, you probably noticed if you've been a loyal listener, you know about our flagging procedures on the podcast. But since it's a new season, we haven't really done it yet. Figured it'd be a good time to kind of go over the flags once again. So this is your typical flags that you see at the racetrack. Some of them you'll see more often than others, and some you may not see at all, depending on which track you go to. But of course, we start from the green flag, which is your typical go racing. We start the podcast with the green flag all the time. Yellow flag. John, do you want to explain what the yellow flag means?
Yeah, yellow flag is for caution. So that means anytime you have a spin out or have debris fall off your car, or potentially have misunderstanding or misagreement with another driver or fellow competitor on the track that causes contact or carnage, that usually brings out a caution. So
I think Mason's referring to our podcast.
Yeah.
Reasons we would bring out a yellow flag here on the Track
or
Packers
when you
podcast.
or the misfacts in general.
Misinformation, fake news, that sort of things.
Yep.
So when John is just spewing lies, we bring out the yellow flag on John.
Yeah, which is very seldom. It's usually more Becca and Mason related lately. Actually, let me back up. It's not truly Becca related lately. I mean, she had nothing last podcast. It's more Jessup and Mason related than anything lately. So just spewing their mouths off without having anything to support or back it up.
Yeah, I would agree with. Becca, would you like to explain the red flag?
The red flag is usually when we go off the rails, and that's usually going to be a really hard cut for Mason to splice in editing. So usually red flag is when we go completely off the rails. And then for anyone who watches our podcast, either on Facebook or on YouTube, you can typically see me waving the red flag. And that's usually going to be a hard
John,
cut
is that a caution?
somewhere in the editing.
No, we're just explaining, so no cautions or anything during this time.
Yep. But Jessup, can you explain the black flag?
Yes, the black flag means you've done bad. And Becca has seen this plenty of times in the last season and 7 episodes. That is where you have messed up more than once, but twice at a minimum, which means you take yourself and your opinions to the pits. Yep. And you will no longer in the conversation of relevancy.
And you may get towed out of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
Which has happened to Becca more than once when she's been arguing with officials.
Sometimes
I do what I want.
Sometimes you're escorted off premises.
This is true too.
It's a great explanation.
Yes, the best part is Jessup has used the black flag, so he's got experience in real life and on the podcast.
And I just want to make a disclaimer here too for all of our listeners and drivers and everything else. When you go to a racetrack and you see these flags, we're kind of explaining it from the podcast side, but it's very similar from also the racing side. But also, every flagman is going to be different. Some flagman will definitely wave these flags. Some will just put them in the flag holder.
It's very true. Kind of whatever fits your style, I guess, right?
This is very true.
The passing flag, we don't utilize a whole lot, and it's kind of not a hard definition of how we use it on the podcast. I basically view it as you're getting ran over on your opinion or your take. So just move aside. Just move on to the next person.
I would agree. Stay in your lane.
Yes.
Stay in your lane. Don't try to jump in front of the pack. That's how you get everybody into a wreck.
Don't pull a Kevin LePage.
Very true. Very true. And the white flag is pretty self-explanatory. When we close out the podcast, we show or display the white flag. Sometimes we wave it. I prefer just showing it.
I agree.
Now, are you more of a...
I'm more of a this.
Because this caused controversy a few years back over at the Red River Valley Speedway during the Mod Tour.
This is true.
The drivers were looking into the sun and the flagman waved the white flag and everyone thought it was the checker flag because they were looking into the sun. And almost all the drivers, except for the last place car, pulled off the track and the last place car kept on the gas and almost hit tour director John Gartner Sr. as he was wandering across the track in his penny loafers.
This is
Speaking
oh
of, is
gosh.
it his birthday today or was it
It
yesterday?
is his
It
birthday.
is.
And happy birthday to tour director John Sr.
Yes.
Yeah, we're recording this on April 7th. And yeah, happy birthday, John Gartner Sr. Yeah, that was the kind of the perfect storm for that all to go up, how that all played out. And then, of course, the checkered flag signifying the end of the race and the end of the podcast. And so if you see these flags from here on out, now you know what they mean on the podcast, and you also know what they mean when you go to the actual racetrack. And so hopefully that clears things up for the new viewers out there. So for our main topics today, since racing is still a little ways away, we want to discuss kind of leading up to the season, the activities that take place, whether it's car shows, test and tunes before the actual race nights take place for like points and all money and all that stuff. And so we have a couple car shows that take place around the region, depending on which track you are a part of. And so I want to talk about the importance of what those preseason activities mean. And so I'll kind of open this first little question up to anyone. And so do you guys, obviously all of you are down in the Bismarck Mandan area, kind of gearing up for the Dakota Speedway car show. So how important is it to have like a car show before the race season?
Well, I think it's really important myself. I mean, it's the initial kickoff to the upcoming season. It's a way for drivers to get excited, show off their cars, and get the general public involved as well. It gives the fans a chance to get out, and hopefully, depending on where the car shows are at, it can hopefully attract the interest of kids and individuals who may not have been part of our sport before or may not know about it. And we do it in the Kirkwood Mall, and there's a lot of traffic that goes through there, and hopefully we get at least a good number of new individuals, at least their eyes on our cars and the product that we put on the track. So I think there's a lot of benefits and values to it. I mean, it pumps up the drivers, it pumps up the fans. It's kind of like the initial signaling or kickoff to the upcoming race season. And really the only thing after that is either a test and tune, track cleanup, or just in probably this year's case, it's going to be opening night. So I think it's a great value to it.
Yeah, I agree with Jessup on that too. I feel like the car show as a whole, although it's a little bit of an expense from a track perspective, on the car show piece of it, it is basically marketing dollars that you are using for your facility. You essentially have the cars to a different demographic. You also get people a little bit excited for diehard race fans that go down there and check out the cars before the race season starts. And also there's several awards that are usually given away at these car shows to the hard work that some of these drivers and vinyl workers and graphic designers have put into these paint schemes to make them look the best they can before the season starts. And not only that too, but this is also a good way for your fans or even just the regular public to go up to the cars, get experience with them. A lot of times you'll see it at car shows, they'll have like little schedules around. Sometimes they even do like driver meet and greets during the car shows, which are really good ways to get people involved, maybe even some other fun activities. But the schedules are pretty cool too, because I've seen a lot of people grab those schedules off of the cars when they're sitting there, just to have them up in their house or just to have them available if they want to hit a night of racing or know more about the facility as a whole. So those are pretty cool too, because it's a lot of people that go through there to see them, and a lot of brand new people too that maybe don't even know it. And it's kind of nice to see the kids get excited too, because the kids actually get excited when they go up and get to see a different car or something else in there too. The final thing though, that one piece I just didn't touch on that I think is important here too is I'm going to talk from the photography standpoint. It's kind of nice from even track photographers. You'll see a lot of times that they're going to be at the car shows because it's a good place for them to get cool pictures of the cars without them being in an actual track facility, because sometimes it's hard to photograph maybe out there on the track side of it to get a clean picture of the car for like cards or for marketing materials or for thank yous for sponsors, for anything else on there too at the beginning of the season, because A lot of times they might hit them on the track during a test and tune. And we all know a lot of times test and tunes, they don't do a ton of track prep at test and tunes just because they want to get drivers to break, kind of not break down their cars, but kind of go through the motions with the cars, get them into, good working order. And then also the tracks themselves lead them pretty dry too, to see how the track's going to hold up. If the track's softer, if it's going to stay pretty hard to get ready for the next week with the season opener. So it's a really good opportunity for even just the casual race fan to go in and take pictures with the cars, or also just a track photographer to go in there and get some cool shots of the cars before the season starts.
All very good points. Yep, I agree with all that. Becca, what do you got?
I think Jessup and John pretty much nailed it on the head. It's just overall great exposure for racing to your community, whether it's a big community like Bismarck Mandan or a smaller community. Overall, it's good exposure for, you're reaching all sorts of demographics, not only your hardcore fans who are probably going to go check out those race cars right away, day one, and really study, are they hand painted? Are they wrapped? It's really fun to see how crazy people get about looking at the cars and just taking it all in. But then you also have those casual fans who are just these are the first look. This is the first look of race cars that they probably have seen. So this is getting them excited for racing season. And then you have the fans, the new fans that you want to reach and try to get to your track for the first time. And so, we Dakota Speedway hosts their car show down at the Kirkwood Mall. They see thousands of people walk through that mall each day. So that's just really good exposure. Hopefully those people are picking up those pocket schedules so that they can pick out a day and go to maybe their very first race. So the goal is always to get as many fans to the track, and it's like John mentioned, it's just great exposure for the drivers, their sponsors, and all the hard work that they have put in over the off season to display that to the community. And we like to give out awards for the cars, and so in the next couple of days, because our Dakota Speedway Mall show is going to be next week or this coming week, depending when Mason drops this podcast. But you'll probably you'll probably see some photos on social media of the race cars. And if you're nerdy like us, you'll probably be clicking through and checking out all the new paint schemes for the upcoming season. So all around, car shows are just a great way to get all race fans, whether you're hardcore or maybe that casual fan, or maybe this is your first experience with your track racing, excited for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. And I kind of to take it a step further, I kind of like the way it kind of gets everyone back together before the race season starts. It's nice because we don't really have a lot of activities that bring us back together once the race season ends. You may have the year-end banquets that you may have, whether it's in the late fall, winter, or early part of the spring, depending on the track. So it's a nice opportunity to get people back together and, like you said, get everyone excited for the season. And especially having a car show, kind of to take it a step further on location wise, because you have guys have it at the Kirkwood Mall. It's not obviously the first place you think of when it comes to race cars, but it's an opportunity to reach a different audience and kind of gather everyone in a different spot. And so, some car shows kind of take place at racetracks, some take place at, could be a bowling alley. I've seen those. I've seen one at a restaurant, like the Finish Line Burgers and Brews in Velva. They had a car show there one year right off the highway. So it was easy for people to see as they drove by. It's oh, look, there's dozen race cars just sitting out there looking pristine. And so I think it's really cool to see these car shows and see the pictures of the cars as they look the best they're going to look, because once they hit the racetrack, they're definitely not going to look that way. And so, I think car shows are really, really important. And unfortunately, we're seeing less and less, it seems as the years go by, and probably due to cost, depending on where you want to have it. But I challenge anyone out there that owns a business or is a big race fan and owns a business, open up your parking lot to having a few cars stop by in the parking lot, because there's going to be different people that show up that you won't see generally go out to the racetrack. And so you might get an extra fan or two, and we need all the fans we can get at the racetrack as well. Another preseason activity, I guess, touching on the test and tune aspect. This year and last year is probably not the best years to use as examples for test and tunes, but how important is it to have a test and tune before your first official race night?
I think it's fairly important. It's a good way to really get a feel for your race car, especially if you're a driver who maybe just purchased a brand new car or new to you. It's a good way to just get a feel for the car, get some basic ideas for adjustments on the car, and heck, maybe something wasn't all that tight in the engine or the motor, because I've seen motors blown at test and tune. That'd be a horrendous way to start your season, so I think it's a great way just to put some laps on the car, make sure everything's sounding right, feeling right, and that all parts and pieces are running on all cylinders, and just get some laps. Because sometimes, even though you're an experienced driver, maybe the track has got new dirt. There's a new track prep crew. The way that they prepare those racetracks might be different than all those years and years of notes that you've had. Maybe things are different. So I've seen some tracks over this off season, they've mentioned that they have reshaped their tracks. So now all those years of notes are kind of out the window. You might have to go back to work and figure out that new setup, that setup that's going to get you back to victory lane. So it's a good way just to get your season underway by putting some laps under yourself and getting that feel for that race car for the upcoming year.
All good points. Go ahead, Jessup.
I have mixed feelings on it. I mean, I think honestly it comes down to what point of the season we're at. If the weather's good in April and the tracks are all dry, and I say, sure, yeah, it's a good money maker for a club or a racetrack or a promoter to start the season with. But let's say we're reaching towards Memorial Day and we haven't had a race yet. I think there's a point where you just go, all right, let's get to racing. And because essentially that's what we're here to do. And it's not just to do all practice laps. And that's not, test and tunes are good, but they don't put butts in seats. And sometimes, if it's a late season start, you need to get going. And I think there's also a fine balance of how many you put into place and the number of test and tunes throughout a year. I know we have to walk a fine line with not upsetting the surrounding community. And if you do too many, then you upset too many people and organizations, and then you get a bad stench around the property. And it appears that a lot of the community gets a little frustrated when you do too many of them.
Yeah, those are all very good points too. Yeah, you have to kind of wrestle with that balance of timing and then, the amount of tests and tunes throughout a race season. John, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jessup on his points too. I agree with Becca that it's good to get everything shook down, especially if it's early in the season. But once you get too many weeks into it and you keep like maybe pushing back the opener or pushing back everything else, it might just be time to open instead of physically doing a test and tune. Because if you think about it, if your track's been hit by weather, or if there's been other facilities that have opened up around you and you have to push it back a couple weeks further, it might be better just to open instead of holding a test and tune. I mean, just because drivers have either had the opportunity to go to another track and already shake down their cars, or do some type of other testing beforehand, to where it maybe is not even beneficial, or like Jessup said, it's not putting people there to be a physical more or less moneymaker for the facility, I should say, or even providing it from that business stance. So yeah, I agree, and I also agree with Jessup on the multiple tests and tunes. Some facilities like to hold 4 to 5 tests and tunes a year. That gets to be way too excessive. One test and tune at the beginning of the year is likely sufficient for sure with any type of race event or anything else like that one too. You see a lot of times that the bigger shows around the country nowadays, or even the bigger shows even across our land here, they have gone away from those test and tunes and actually turned it into physical race nights, just because of the fact of the matter that they start basically your attendance starts going down from a physical car showing up at the test and tune. And you're kind of feeding into one particular group on some of those facilities that just want to host multiple things to try things with their cars or try other stuff to get more laps, and at that point it becomes null and void from physical, the pure like maybe purpose of it, which would be to shake down the cars or have your new drivers get laps around the facility. So I see it to where typically one test and tune is enough for the season, and multiple just gets to be way too excessive.
I would agree. I think that if you are a track that is lucky enough to have weather sufficient enough to have a test and tune and not take away from like really nice days where you could be racing instead, it's a good way to also get your safety equipment, scoring equipment, and volunteers kind of all on the same page. Make sure that that your tow trucks are running and all the equipment on those machines are working properly. Your scoring and timing is good to go for opening night. But also sometimes racetracks have some new volunteers. It's a good way to get them familiar with the facility and the procedures that they'll have to perform on race night. But if you're a racetrack that holds several throughout the year, it's really easy to get the volunteers there for that very first one, usually before the season starts. Everyone's excited for racing season. Everyone wants to be there for that very first one, maybe the second one. But when you have more than two, the third, fourth, and maybe even fifth test and tune, it's really hard to get volunteers there to be just as excited as that very first one, especially if it's like, say, I don't know, July or August or September. The later you go in the year, the harder it is to get those volunteers that you need there to help make those things possible. It's really hard to get them there. And I think one is good if the weather works out for your racetrack, but otherwise, like Jessup and John said, if it's mid-May and the weather is beautiful on the day that you typically race, I'd say race instead of have a test and tune.
Agreed.
Yeah, Becca, you took my point of volunteers aspect too, because the first thing I think of with a test and tune, obviously at the beginning of the year with drivers shaking down their cars a little bit, is kind of getting everyone on the same page volunteer wise or track worker wise, just making sure everyone's all set to go on like the procedures, kind of how everything works, make sure all the scoring stuff, everything is in line with all the wreckers and tow trucks and all that stuff. And especially because you're probably going to have people in new roles or doing something a little bit different heading into the season. So it's a good opportunity to kind of get everyone together to make sure that when you do have that first race night, everything goes as smoothly as possible. Because usually first night and opening nights, there's a few little bugs to work out. It's some few opening night jitters too. And so kind of nice to kind of get back into the flow of things after we've been a little rusty for 6 or 7 months. And so, yeah, you all make some really good points on the test and tunes, and especially on the test and tunes throughout the season too. I can see it for like bigger events, maybe having a test and tune day before some of the major shows that you see around the country. But on a local level, yeah, probably not as necessary to have those. So I agree with you all on that too.
Heck, John, you and I need to go out to the racetrack and set up the announcer's tower. None of our announcing gear is up there yet.
Yeah, and I don't even know right now if we can even get through like the gates. I drove past there about a week ago, and there's really no way to probably even walk into the facility right now or drive into the facility with how deep the depth of the snow is. So it's probably going to be a couple more weeks before Becca and I even get close to setting up anything in the tower base out there at the facility.
Be a good like mountain climbing workout, trying to climb all those steps covered in snow.
No doubt, or even just trying to get through the gate where the mound was huge from the drift. I think that might be a little bit of a workout.
Yeah, all good points. So over the last few weeks, we can kind of sharing some of our favorite schemes that we've seen revealed so far this year, and we'll share a few more here a little bit later on. But we took the initiative to start coming up with a paint scheme that we like, and we're going to kind of explain why we chose the scheme the way we did. And so we're just going to share 2 of our schemes this week, and we'll share the other 2 in one of the next couple of episodes. And so right now I have Jessup queued up, and so if you give me a second to get it all on screen here, I will share it with those watching the podcast. So this is Jessup's paint scheme. As you can see, number 88, blue, gray, and some green in it. Jessup, feel free to explain your paint scheme to the audience and why you went this way.
Well, there's a couple things behind it. One, it's a really clean looking car, in my opinion. The color selection really isn't something we'd see out west, or I haven't seen a car paint scheme like this out here in quite some time. Overall, my biggest thing is I like very clean looking cars, and I've incorporated my sponsorship colors straight into the paint scheme, and it's not too wild, it's not over the top. And I just like the color mix, the color combinations that again, I don't see a whole lot of green and blue out west here, so that's kind of why I like it.
What made you choose the 88 number?
It's my birth year.
I'm always fascinated why drivers pick the number they do. So you chose birth year, other drivers, I think it's fascinating, so I just wanted to ask.
Yep, I mean, in all honesty, the placement of the sponsors is to help the whole paint scheme flow together, and it's not to take away from the overall appearance of the car.
I notice you have your number closer to the back. Is that to purposely annoy Mason or just for the aesthetic of the design?
A little of both. Actually, it was just so the Metro Plumbing sponsorship could kind of flow into that little greenish stripe.
That's a good point. I
Intentional.
mean, the further back it is, the less it bugs me. It's the way up by the front tire that looks kind
Well,
of dumb. Although in dirt track racing, like I've seen numbers all over the place. I've seen some way back on like behind the rear tire on the body of the car, and then some are on the sail panels of like modifieds. And so
Yeah,
dirt track racing, I feel like, is more, I guess, forgiving to different number positions. It's like the whole NASCAR thing, which we don't need to get into again. But I like that scheme. That's a good scheme.
thank you.
The other scheme we're sharing is my scheme, and we've been kind of developing our paint schemes using the World of Outlaws game that was released last year, and so just using the general street stock to kind of show off what we have. I kind of just made one for fun several months back, and this is what I came up with, and I decided not to change it up. So my favorite color is pink, and so I of course had to have some pink in the scheme. I do like this like sky blue, so I wanted to incorporate that, and then just wanted a darker color to kind of contrast with the lighter colors. And so I don't know if it's like a simple and clean look, but it seems like there's not a lot of detail in like the shape on the car. And so that's kind of what I like. There's a lot of schemes that you see now that have like 8 to 10 different colors and like all sorts of mumbo jumbo things that kind of make everything get lost sponsor wise. And so wanted to keep it kind of simple so that way the sponsors stand out. Did you have a question,
Yeah,
Jessup?
one of my friends used to call them the tribal tattoo, the car wraps, because they got like 20 different things going on, and then they got some tribal looking tattoo background that takes away from the sponsorship and it makes it cluttered. And I mean, they're kind of cool looking, but at the same time, it's a lot going on.
Yeah. And like some of them can be pulled off and look really sharp, but some it's just like, yeah, that's way too busy for my liking, at least. So Joseph, you mentioned like you kind of matched your sponsors with the scheme a little bit. And I kind of like it when like the original sponsor colors are kind of left alone and just kind of like art placed on the car, as long as it doesn't blend into the car schemes too much. Because I kind of like to have like, with dirt track racing, obviously you're going to have a whole bunch of different sponsors and they have different like primary colors that they associate themselves with. And so almost seems, at least to me, a little unfair to kind of try to match like different colors from those different sponsors. And so kind of want to get their time in the limelight and kind of come up with like a scheme that kind of fits my brand a little bit.
Now, Mason, I didn't change the sponsorship colors. I just found sponsors that matched my color.
Well, you are a very good marketer of finding sponsorship then.
This is true.
Very
we-
selective too. So if I am like, let's say I own Little Caesars and I wanted to come sponsor your car, are you gonna turn me away?
No.
So my
The
primary
upcoming-
colors are orange and white and black.
Okay, well then I would probably go with a orange and white or with a black trim or a black accent.
Then what happens if Subway comes along then?
That'll be my secondary
Okay.
I'm confused, but sure.
I'll have multiple cars or multiple skins. Or if we really wanted to get technical, I could go with the half and half body, same exact design, just half the car being orange and black, and then the other half being green and yellow.
So you basically be like those restaurants. I don't know if they still have them a lot anymore. I know there's one in mine. There's like a KFC and an A&W. So you kind of have like that setup.
Sure, why not?
Okay. That would,
Or
that
I'd
would-
change, I'd change the scheme so it would fit into that, where it could be a more of a plain scheme, so it doesn't go against the whole like design.
Interesting.
So much like my other car, the career mode car that I sent you. Are you going to put that up, Mason?
Yeah, I'll finish the details on this scheme real quick. So I love having colored rims. I absolutely love that on cars, especially when it matches the car. Not a big fan of like the chrome look on a lot of cars. I wish they would have like, they just like have like a black rim or something else. Cause like the chrome to me seems a little bit too, I don't know, proper, I guess is the best way I can describe it. And then 5 is my favorite number and E is the first letter of my last name. So that's why I went with the number.
Are you also showing off you have 46 wins?
Oh, well, yeah, I do have a very stellar street stock career, but that's just on quick race mode. Career wins, I think I'm over 50.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
John's
I'm-
impressed.
So he's got 4 more wins if you add in career mode.
Yep. That's
no,
why
that's
I'm
50
really impressed.
separate in the career.
Oh, that makes more sense now. Now I'm really more or less of good job, Mason.
Mason's one of those people that buys his wins.
Well, I do have a lot of money in career mode. I won't deny that. All right, explain this scheme.
Honestly, this is just a very simplistic scheme. It's actually a little different than what I had earlier, but it's just white, black, clean, crisp. The red pops out on the paint scheme just a little bit. The numbers are kind of cool looking, and this goes back to you could put literally any sponsor on this and it would look fine.
Yep.
And I like that. I don't mind a lot going on some cars, but as a business owner, I would probably say I would want my sponsorship to not be lost in the design.
There you go. And I do like the little detail that you kind of made the number pop a little bit, because I'm sure like the chrome look on the number would probably get lost underneath the lights if it wasn't outlined by something a little bit brighter. So that's a good touch.
I don't even know if that's the better of the pictures.
I probably picked the wrong picture too to share.
Yeah, that's go get the other ones, Mason. Get the other ones.
We have a show to go run.
Yeah, but I want to look at it.
Well, yeah, so those are mine and Jessup's schemes that we shared for this episode. We'll see Becca's and John's hopefully in the next episode or two. And so let us know what you like in paint schemes, or even better, you can drop a sneak peek of your paint scheme if you haven't revealed it yet. That'd be also really cool to see, because there's still a lot of you out there. I know you're waiting on final sponsorships and wraps and to come in the mail and all that stuff, but feel free to share whatever you want to share to kind of get people excited for what your car is going to look like for the race season. So going into some rumors, developments, and schedule releases, Mr. Dakota Dirt, what's been added or what's been shaken over the last week or so?
Well, the 305 Sprint Series got added, so that's pretty exciting. I believe Jamestown just added them to their June 17th race, which will be, in co-opt with the Mama Vetter Hobby Stock race. So that's going to be pretty exciting. That'll be a big race there. Two really fun series coming through. And I think this will actually be really fun to see how many 305 sprints make it over to Jamestown, because I think if this can get a good footing, they would be kind of fun to see there.
Agreed.
Maybe not on a weekly basis, but maybe once a month. It would be kind of cool to see them there.
Yeah,
But-
and they're starting to gain more footing in the Red River Valley. We're still waiting
Mhm.
on Red River Valley's and Norman County's schedules to be released, but the 305s are going to be a weekly class at Norman County Raceway. And
Yep.
they've been racing a handful of races throughout the year at Red River Valley. So starting to get to see them a little bit more and more. And so yeah, it'd be kind of nice to get another sprint car class going, because we've been almost at a deficit for sprint car racing, I'd say, especially in North Dakota. I mean, we have NOSA on the east side of the state, but outside of that's been kind of few and far between over the last few years as far as sprint car racing goes. If you don't count the wingless sprint cars, my apologies to the wingless sprint cars.
Yeah, it's interesting right now to see the landscape of sprint car racing changing in North Dakota right now. It'll be interesting to see how this series impacts the NOSA 410 sprints. And it'll be interesting to see how this impacts the Renegade wingless sprints. And I don't know, it's honestly going to come down to what people prefer. Do you want the wings on? Do you want to watch them without the wings? And that's it's a real touchy subject, and it's a real area, like general area specific subject. For example, if we look at Iowa, a lot more of those are going to be winged sprint cars. If we look in Indiana, it's going to be generally non-winged sprint cars. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen here, because I don't know if it's going to be a big enough sandbox to have everybody playing in at once, or if Sprint Car Mania is going to blow up and everyone's going to head that direction, which for me, I don't mind. I like sprint cars. So it'll be fun to see what happens.
Yeah, because I mean, the landscape of late models has kind of changed over the last few years. I mean, we were starting to lose late model drivers for several years, but now it seems like we have more and more creeping into the late models these last couple of years. And so, maybe the same thing happens with sprint cars, and all of a sudden we have a smorgasbord of sprint cars, which would be awesome.
Yeah, I think racing right now as a whole, you're seeing a lot of changing going on. At least the landscapes are starting to look a little different than what they have in the last 2-3 years. Late model car counts are becoming healthy again. 410 sprints are starting to dip a little to a concerning area, just a bit from what I've seen so far this year, and what I saw from last year as well. One interesting subject is going to be the resurgence of top tier modified racing. When I say tiered, it just means the upper, more powerful modifieds versus the sport mod and the Midwest mods, because we're seeing more of those drivers. The sport and Midwest mods are jumping up into full blown A mod rides.
Yeah, so let's kind of transition to some of the latest and greatest paint schemes. I bet we may have maybe a modified driver or two. Becker or John, since Jessup and I kind of took most of the last discussion, go ahead and list off a scheme that has stood out to you over the last week.
Beck, I'll let you go first.
All right. So this is such a fun time of year scrolling through Facebook, because I just see race cars all the time through my timeline. Plus, I've seen a few sneak peeks on my Snapchat as well. So that's super exciting. One of my favorite designs from the past week, or since our last podcast, is Todd Shoot. Primarily, this is a mostly black race car, but it has a nice swoop of blue through it. It's for the most part pretty simple, but it just looks really nice. It's a really nice wrap job for him. I also like Taylor Cool. She has a new wrap job for 2023. I actually liked last year's better, but she added a third color. What her primary colors are purple and white, but she added a nice pop of orange, and I think that's gonna look so nice under the lights. So I really liked that. And then I was watching a little bit of racing from Marshalltown tonight, and I also really liked Trent Loveroot's car, which is a mostly white car with that really shiny purple chromy look to it. So the last couple of years I've really liked the white and purple cars. And so yeah, that just fits right into the things I like right now. So yeah, 3 really, really good looking race cars that I've seen this week.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen all those, and yeah, they look pretty sharp. I do agree with that. John, what schemes have stood out to you?
Yeah, so I've seen several schemes this past week too. Staying local, Matt Dosh released his scheme that JK Designs did, and it's a little bit different here for the 2023 season, and it's a very nice, clean look this year. So I really like that one too, with how he's got the white and blue, and it's basically not over dominating, I should say, on one color. They're very, very, very standard, and I shouldn't say standard, but they're very much kind of blended out on the scheme, and looks really nice, looks really sharp this year for sure with Matt Dosh's scheme. The other car too that was released this week too was also another graphic designer that's out there too, which is Mike Stearns. Stearns released his modified scheme as part of the Moonshine Modified Tour, and that scheme was very sharp too. I like how he's kind of got the gray and then neon yellow incorporated into it this year with a blue. I think that'll look very nice for his car this year, and that car looks super sweet. So that's kind of where I'm at from a physical, like maybe local-ish level. There's other ones that have been released this week too that have been super nice, more on the national level too, or even drivers like Becca had mentioned down in Iowa. Since Marshalltown opened up tonight, I know Boone is planning to open up tomorrow, so that'll be kind of neat to see, because there's a lot of drivers down there that have brand new paint schemes that are very, very, very sharp too. But I'm gonna leave some schemes for you guys too to go through with you and Jessup.
Awesome. Jessup, go ahead.
I'm going to talk more along the theme of the year type of thing that we were kind of noticed tonight watching Marshalltown was it seems like blue is a hot color for modifieds this year. So I'm curious to see if we're going to see a lot of blue mods coming around. Not saying that's bad or not. It's always interesting to see how every year there is a hot color that for some reason a lot of cars end up getting. So it's kind of fascinating to see how that works. All I know is there were a lot of good looking sprint cars over at 34 Raceway down in Iowa, Burlington, for the IRA versus MOA challenge this weekend. And there's some sharp looking cars down there.
Yeah. We were watching Marshalltown tonight. We're like the first 8 to 10 cars, it seemed like all had some sort of blue in it. It's just like, huh. I mean, it's cool because they do stand out on the track. I think a lot up here in our neck of the woods, we have a lot of white cars. So I'm hoping we kind of transition out of that a little bit, because makes everyone look a little too similar for my liking.
Well,
Can
the
I
nice
make
thing
a
about
dumb joke? Is this like a farming thing? Because there's a lot of farmer racers or farmers who are involved with racing, and I always see a bunch of white trucks coming from farms. So does that mean that they get their white race cars because they're farmers?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have kind of gone the sticker route versus full wrap, and so that probably plays a factor, because, well, just stickers is a way cheaper than a full blown wrap, and so that probably could be a contributing factor also.
But they could use like a blue or red base tin.
Yeah, but then depending on who you ask, they probably don't want to put the work into painting it a whole different color or something. But yeah, hopefully I'd like to see that blue trend make its way north from Iowa. That'd be really cool to see.
Well, and I think too, the nice thing about that is that there's several different color tones of blues. So there's various shades that you can use and everything else. So like tonight, when we noticed that from Marshalltown, it wasn't just the same blue across the board. It was like completely different blues on every single car that we had looked at.
Yeah, there's been two cars that have kind of stuck out to me over the last week. The first one is Derek Reeks Midwest Modified from Ortonville, Minnesota. He's got a blue and black car with some pink in it, kind of a breast cancer awareness wrap that he's
Shock.
got going this year. And so, of course, pink, my favorite color.
Mason likes a pink car.
Of course I do.
We're all surprised. We about fell out of our chairs.
Huh.
It's great. I don't know what you're talking about. It looks cool, doesn't it?
You know what? Pink is, if done right,
It's
color
very nice.
Yeah, if it's color coordinated and paired well, it looks really good.
Yeah. So that one stuck out to me, obviously. And then the other one that stood out to me, kind of as a surprise, because I didn't realize he was going from a Midwest mod into a modified. It was Brady Utenen's modified. He went to a red and I believe it's red and gray scheme. Last year he was blue, red, and gray. And he's out of the Superior, Wisconsin area, but it's cool to see someone making the jump from a Midwest mod to a modified. And he's not the only one doing that this year. So it's really cool to see when drivers are taking that next challenge and moving into a different class and stepping into a different level of racing. And so he'll be fun to watch for possibly the Wissota Rookie of the Year battle. So that'll be really fun to see. So that's our latest round of paint scheme reveals for this week. And racers, you still have plenty of time based on the weather. So we'll continue to share our favorites as the season gets closer and closer. And so as we're closing out our episode, does anyone have any other rumors or anything else that they want to share with the folks out there?
Rumors.
Not really rumor based, I don't think, from some of this, but like Mason had mentioned, there is several drivers that are moving classes this year, so that'll be kind of nice to see, or have new cars. That'll be kind of nice to see too.
Yeah, I got a Snapchat from Johnny Carter, and he's working on building he's got a new car coming into 2023, and so he's working on building that. He told me that he's not gonna be ready for a while, and I just reassured him, you got plenty of time. So it's been fun to see some of the Snapchat stories that go ahead and try to add some drivers, because they kind of reveal some more stuff on Snapchat, because of course people can't really see that all the time. Brody Karlsrud has a really bright scheme this year. I'll put that out there. Yeah, there's been some really cool sneak peeks of paint schemes, and so be exciting to see that after the Easter weekend. I'm sure once people kind of spend time with their families and kind of get out of this latest blizzard and storm that we just went through.
It's fun being an admin for my race pass for multiple racetracks across North Dakota, because I get a sneak peek of some of the new race car drivers who might be not only new to their car class, but also just new to dirt track racing. It's also fun to see some drivers move up from different racing divisions. So this week, it sounds like both Tyler and Tanner Weeks will be moving up from sport mod to A mod, and they've already made the commitment to race Mandan weekly. I'm curious to see if they'll race split between Dickinson and Williston on Saturdays and race Minot on Sundays. But sounds like they are going to be racing Mandan on Friday nights. So that's super exciting to see two more modifieds down here at the Dakota Speedway.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we mentioned earlier, you guys have the car show coming up this next week, and so it'll be a nice opportunity to see a sneak peek at the new drivers and the new looking cars that will be there. Last year, how many legends were there? Was it like 17 or like 19 legends?
I believe it was 18 last year.
Yeah, it was a lot.
A lot.
Which is
There was
great.
a lot of cars.
A lot of legends.
Yeah, Legendville appeared right in the middle of Kirkwood Mall. It was quite the sight.
And right then and there, we knew the legend field was going to be quite large this year.
You guys are the worst, and I hate you all.
What did I say?
You guys are just making fun of me. It's also Good Friday. It's also a good day.
No,
Yes,
it's
I
not
know.
good. It's good.
Yes,
Mason, have I said anything to offend Becca here?
I don't know. I have to watch the replay.
And
I feel
Mason,
attacked.
one final thing that we have to say here, I know we talked about it earlier, but as racing season gets closer, as schedules become even more prevalent, as we know more about when racing is going to start here around the state, Race fans, be sure you keep up with Dakota Dirt. Again, they are your one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing news, results, even weather forecasts, and much more with great news articles. Again, Dakota Dirt and dakotadirt.org. Check them out as racing season is upon us.
Also, I know we're not exactly doing wins of the week just yet, just because there's not a whole lot of racing locally going on, but win of the week goes to Jessup as he is wrapping up his master's degree. He submitted his final paper. Teacher gave him his first comments, which were all really good, which hopefully means he's gonna, fingers crossed, walk in a couple weeks and walk across the stage, get his diploma, but also we should have more free time to write more articles for Dakota Dirt and update the website and all the good things that come along with that.
But that does mean I will have more time to actually get to write. So hopefully here in the next week or so, I can start writing some stuff. But we do have some people racing out of our area tonight. I believe there was one down in Marshalltown in the
Gabe
sport
Deshaw
mods.
won his heat race.
I
And
think I
We
saw
got some-
Jordan Albright, who's kind of out of the Minot area, too.
That was a caution flag on Jessup because there was more than one down there in Marshalltown.
okay, that's fine.
Yep. So just like that, you were back on the last row.
Well, I was actually going to throw a caution on John because I can't believe he didn't put the Dakota Dirt ad in when I first asked Mr. Dakota Dirt on the latest updates.
We also have another racer from our area. Brendan Mullen is raced down at the Shelby County Speedway with the Malvern Banks 360 sprints. And I think he got 5th or 6th tonight. And yeah, he got 5th. So he had a pretty good night overall down there too. So it's nice to see some of our drivers getting out and racing tonight. And even if there's more than just one at each track, it's just cool to see that they're getting out there.
Yeah, did you mention Tim Essenson also?
He did not.
I did not. He won his heat, I think, at the World of Outlaws.
I don't
He
know
did.
if he won his heat, but he made the show. I saw
He
that.
made he
Where
made the
did he
show for
end
sure.
up? Let's take a look.
From what I'm reading, he didn't fare too well in the feature, but making the show.
He made the show though. I mean, against the stout field.
Out of a very stout lineup of car drivers down there, he 31 cars to make the show. That's pretty impressive.
And looks like Sheldon Haudenschild won tonight.
That is correct.
I'm not even wearing my Sheldon Haudenschild hat. What the heck?
Yeah, he had a really good pass for the win. So that was pretty cool to see him do that. Another driver of interest. One of the night probably goes to Ricky Thornton. I think he came from 14th. I think it was 14th I saw online. So nice $20,000 win tonight for him, going 14th to 1st. And it's kind of interesting right now. You're seeing a lot of super late model wins coming from deeper in the field. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and nice to see Ricky kind of having a good start to the year. I mean, three of us saw him down in Volusia come through the field for a top 3 finish, and so that was really cool to see there too.
I bet if we were doing dollar bets on who would win the race, Jessup would have picked the pole sitter.
You're probably right.
Okay, I don't want to be slandered like this. First
Or
off,
sorry, front row. My
First
apologies.
off, neither of you, I picked last half the time, and neither of you picked anyone in the front row. So if Tim McCready is sitting on the front row, I'm thinking I'm going to pick Tim McCready.
But you just said most wins this year, or majority of the wins this year have come from farther back in the field.
There have been more wins this year than usual.
I mean,
So,
Jessup, I agree with you. I mean, if Tim McCready, who is your defending Lucas Oil late model champion, is on the front row, why would you not pick him?
it's because I'm smart, John.
Exactly.
Take my track position and driver of choice, I guess.
No, being the pole sitter on a 50-lap race out in front and not knowing what the fast line is, tough sledding from my vantage point.
Let me put it this way. If you look at the World of Outlaw sprint cars, a lot of the winners come from the front row.
Well, that's because
This
they
is-
get to the lap traffic in like 3 or 4 laps and lap half the field.
This is true.
But where did they win? Where do I lie, Mason? Where do I lie?
You have to have stats to back it up, unfortunately.
Why are you throwing a caution and checkered?
Because the end of this podcast
We haven't even
is warranted.
we haven't
it.
even thrown the white.
Yeah, where's our ending skit?
And Mason gets caution to the back.
See, there we go. With that, that'll do it for episode 8 of season 2. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Go like the Facebook page. We want to thank all the listeners out there. Thank you to the podcast subscribers. Subscribe on Spotify, Google, and Apple if you want to listen in listen only mode. Thank you once again to Tyler and Hitch Harness for the support of the podcast. And as always, go out there and pack the track.